You never truly know how much power you carry within until the world tries to break your spirit. We bring you the most inspiring tales of silent warriors who rose from the ashes of defeat to claim their victory. Subscribe today and find the fire inside your own heart. I never told my mother that the man she said I'd embarrass had already hired me to rewire his entire lake house. 11 days before my sister's engagement party, my father called to say it might be best if I sat this one out. Not because of anything I'd done. Because my sister Brianna's future in-laws were particular. And a sister who showed up with calluses and steel-toed boots might give them the wrong idea about our family. "You get it, right, kiddo?" my father said, in that gentle voice he used when he was asking me to make myself smaller. The Caldwells are a certain kind of people. Brianna just wants everything to look right. I said I got it. I didn't tell him that Mr. Caldwell had signed a $41,000 contract with my company 3 months earlier. I didn't tell him that I'd been standing in that man's kitchen the week before, showing him where we'd run the new panel. I didn't tell him that in 11 days, at a country club 12 minutes from my parents' house, a few hundred people would watch me accept an award my own family didn't know I'd been nominated for, and that the daughter they kept tucking out of sight had built something they'd never bothered to look at. They never asked what I was doing all those years, so they never knew. It started when I was 19, sitting at the kitchen table in our house in Maple Grove, Minnesota, a tidy little suburb northwest of Minneapolis, where every lawn got mowed in diagonal stripes and nobody talked too loud. My dad had the Vikings game on low. My mom was folding laundry on the couch. Brianna was upstairs on the phone, the way she always was. "I'm not going back to the U in the fall," I said. "I got into the electrical apprenticeship through the union. I start in January." My mother set down the towel she was folding. "An apprenticeship," she repeated. "Not a question, a diagnosis." "For electrical work," I said. 4 years. They pay me to learn. I come out a journeyman, no debt." My father muted the game. "Honey, that's men climbing around in attics in July. That's hauling wire up ladders. That's not," he stopped himself. "That's not what?" I asked. My mother picked the towel back up. "The Petersons' girl just got into the nursing program. Dad and I always pictured you in something with an office, air conditioning, a badge." She smiled the smile that meant the conversation was already over in her head. "But we'll support whatever you do, sweetheart." I learned what that word meant over the next 12 years. Support meant they came to the easy things and looked away from the hard ones. Support meant a thin smile and a change of subject. Brianna came down the stairs in time to catch the tail end of it. "You're going to be, like, an electrician?" She wrinkled her nose, not even unkindly, just like I told her I was moving to the moon. "Huh. Okay." Then she opened the fridge and that was that. Every Sunday we did dinner at my parents' house. Pot roast in winter. Grilled chicken in summer. The same blue tablecloth. The same chipped gravy boat. And every Sunday my mother asked Brianna about work. Brianna did marketing for a medical device company in Eden Prairie. She wore blazers. She had a parking spot with her name on it. She talked about decks and stakeholders and a trip the company sent her on to a conference in Scottsdale, and my parents leaned in like she was reading them scripture. Then my mother would turn to me. "How's the wiring going, hon?" That was it. Not "what are you working on?" Not "did you finish that job?" Just, "how's the wiring going?" in the same tone you'd ask someone if their cold was getting better. "One daughter is a doctor. One daughter is a church." Well, is Hal father. And Rizam, my father said, "Good for you, kiddo." And then asked Brianna if her company had matched her 401k yet. When I got my master electrician's license at 26 and started taking my own contracts, my mother said, "Just be careful on those ladders, sweetheart," and asked Brianna about her new boyfriend, the one with the boat. I stopped offering things up around year 4, stopped waiting for anyone to be curious. But I kept working. I kept building. And by the time my father suggested I sit out my sister's engagement party, the company I started in a rented garage had wired 3 medical clinics, 2 hotels, and 40-some custom homes, employed 19 people, and cleared just over $2 million in revenue the year before. I paid myself $155 after everything. Brianna made $71 in marketing. But every Sunday, my mother asked about her stakeholders. And every Sunday she asked me, "How's the wiring going, hon?" The call came on a Tuesday in late September. I'd just gotten home from a walkthrough on a new clinic build. My jacket still smelling like sawdust and joint compound. A fresh scrape across 2 knuckles from a junction box I'd reached into without looking. I had a thermos of cold coffee in one hand and my phone buzzing in the other. Dad. He never called on a Tuesday. "Hey, Dad." "Hi there." That voice. Careful, sanded down soft. "You got a minute?" I sat on the bench by my front door, started untying my boots. "Sure. What's up?" "So, Brianna's engagement party. The Caldwells are hosting at their club out in Wayzata, 3rd Saturday in October." He cleared his throat. "It's the first time both families are really meeting, and your sister, she's just got a lot riding on it." I waited. I learned to wait. "She's thinking maybe keep it tight. Immediate family, the Caldwells, a few of their friends. And she's a little worried about, how things'll come across." "How things'll come across," I repeated. "The Caldwells are a particular kind of family, kiddo. Country club, charity boards, that whole world. And Brianna's nervous that if it comes up that you—" He stopped. "That I what, Dad?" A long breath. "That you do, the manual work. She's scared they'll get an impression. She doesn't want them thinking we're—" He didn't finish. "Thinking we're what?" "Less," he said quietly, "than them." There it was. I sat there with one boot off, looking at the scrape on my hand, the dirt still under my nails from a day's work, and I felt that old stone settle in my chest, the one I knew by heart. "So I'm not invited," I said. "It's not like that, it's just this once. Next time, it's fine." "Don't be like that, honey." "I get it," I said. "And the awful part was that I did." "Thank you, sweetheart," my father said, and the relief in his voice was the thing that actually hurt. Not the words. The relief. "We'll do a dinner, just us, after the holidays." "Sure," I said. We hung up. I stood in my own kitchen, the one I'd gutted and rewired and tiled myself in a little 1940s house I'd bought and fixed up with my own 2 hands. And I didn't cry. I just stood there wondering when exactly I'd become the thing my family parked in the garage when company came over. They never asked, so they never knew that while Brianna talked about her stakeholders, I'd been building something with my name on the side of 3 vans. The first year nearly killed me. I started the company at 27 in a rented 2-bay garage off County Road 9, with a used van I bought for 19 grand and a logo I designed myself at the kitchen table, just my initials and a small lightning bolt, clean, nothing flashy. I sat in that van the day I drove it home and gripped the wheel and thought, this is either the smartest or the dumbest thing I've ever done. I told my parents at Sunday dinner. I started my own outfit, I said. Going out on my own. My father looked up from his plate. On your own? In this economy? That's brave, hon, my mother said. Just be careful. Brianna asked, do you even have late customers? Not yet, I said. Just a phone number and a van. She nodded, already back on her phone. Cool. My mother turned to her. Bree, tell us about Scottsdale. The second year I hired my first guy, a 51-year-old named Marco who'd been laid off when a big commercial shop downsized. He could troubleshoot a dead circuit faster than anyone I'd ever met. Just stood there with his head tilted like the wires were whispering to him. I told my parents I'd made my first hire. "That's nice, sweetheart," my mother said, and asked Brianna if she'd hit her targets that quarter. The third year, I landed my first real commercial job, a full electrical package for a dental clinic in Plymouth. $48,000. I was so scared the night before we started, I couldn't sleep. Marco found me at the shop at 5 a.m., drinking coffee that tasted like a battery and said, "We've done bigger with less, boss, let's go." We came in on time and under budget, and the contractor put me on his list. By the end of that year, I had 6 guys and almost $500,000 in revenue. I told my parents the company was doing well. "Good," my father said. "Make sure you're paying into something for retirement." Brianna mentioned she'd been invited to ring the closing bell at some industry event in Chicago. My mother lit up like a Christmas tree. The fourth year, I moved into a real shop, hired an office manager named Whitney who ran scheduling so I could actually be on the tools, took on 2 apprentices of my own because I remembered what it meant to have somebody bet on you. We crossed $1 million. I bought the little 1940s house in northeast Minneapolis. The one with the dead knob and tube wiring the inspector flagged. And I rewired the whole thing myself over 4 months of nights and weekends. Paid $140 for it. It appraised at $220 when I was done. My parents came by once. My mother said, "It's cute home, cozy." My father walked the basement, looked at my new panel, all the breakers labeled in my neat block printing. "You did all this?" he said. It was the most interested he'd ever sounded in anything I owned. "Yeah," I said, "I did." By the 5th year, this past year, the company was on track to clear $2 million. 19 people. 3 vans now, all wrapped clean with the logo. We'd wired 3 medical clinics, a boutique hotel down by the river, and more custom homes than I could count. Our biggest job to date had been a $60,000 build for a family putting up a place on Lake Minnetonka. And the architect on that one told me afterward that the homeowners specifically named my crew in their thank you note to him. That got me noticed. That got me on the radar of the Regional Builders Association. And in August, I got an email saying I'd been nominated for the association's Tradesperson of the Year, the youngest of the 3 finalists. I read it standing in the shop with grease on my forearm and read it again to make sure it was real. I told Marco. He got quiet and looked away the way he does and said, "About time somebody noticed." I told Whitney. She actually screamed. I didn't tell my parents. Back in the spring, I'd gotten a call from a man named Gordon Caldwell. He had a lake house out on Wayzata Bay. He wanted completely rewired and updated new service, smart panels, automated lighting, the whole thing. He'd gotten my name from the architect on the Minnetonka job. He was precise on the phone, a little formal, asked good questions. We met at the property and he walked me through every room with a leather folder full of notes. The kind of man who noticed if a switch plate sat a quarter-inch crooked. I liked him, honestly. We signed a $41,000 contract. On site, I wore my work clothes, hair tied back under a cap, the same boots I'd worn for years. He saw a woman running a crew, and I think he assumed I was the lead electrician who happened to own the shop, which was true, but he had no idea of the size of it. He saw somebody good with her hands. He didn't see the person who signed 19 paychecks. He never asked. I never corrected him. One afternoon at the lake house, while my guys pulled wire upstairs, Gordon mentioned his son was getting serious about a girl. "She does marketing," he said, watching me terminate a run at the panel. "Lovely girl. We're meeting her family soon." I said that was nice and double-checked, a torque on a lug. He didn't say the girl's name. It wasn't my business, and I had no reason in the world to think he was talking about my sister. I didn't know that when my future brother-in-law described our family to the Caldwells, he left me out entirely. I didn't know that when Brianna mentioned me at all, it was as, "My sister, she's kind of in construction." I didn't know that the man whose lake house I was rewiring was the same man my own father was so afraid of disappointing that he'd called to disinvite me from a party. The silence was about to break in the worst possible place for everyone but me. The Builders Association banquet was the third Saturday in October at a country club in Wayzata, out on Lake Minnetonka, 12 minutes from my parents' house. I got there at 6. The lot was filling with trucks and SUVs, half of them belonging to guys I'd worked alongside or under for years. I parked my own truck, not a van, my personal F-150, and sat there a minute with the engine running and the heater on, even though it was only 50-some degrees, because my hands had gone cold the way they do when I'm nervous and won't admit it. I had on a dark green dress I'd bought 3 days before because I owned exactly nothing for an occasion like this. Simple. My hair down for once, brushed out past my shoulders. My grandmother's little gold studs, the only jewelry I wore. I looked in the mirror and barely knew the woman looking back, not the one with drywall dust on her cheek and a burn scar on her forearm. I looked like somebody my mother might be glad to explain to a stranger. I hated that the thought even crossed my mind. I went in. The ballroom was huge, round tables under low chandeliers, a stage at the front with a podium and a screen. I found my table near the middle. The finalists' table. A few other tradespeople already seated, a mason I knew, a plumber I'd subbed with, a couple of GCs. We shook hands. Somebody made a joke about how none of us knew how to sit still in dress clothes. Everybody laughed. I opened the program. Tradesperson of the Year. 3 finalists. My name in the middle of the list. And then I looked up and saw them. A table off to the right. Good view of the stage. My father in a sport coat, stiff the way he always got when my mother made him dress up. My mother in a dark red dress I'd never seen. Brianna beside a young man I recognized from her Instagram, her fiancé. And next to him, an older couple I didn't know until I did. Gordon Caldwell. And his wife. My stomach dropped. Of course. Gordon's construction company was a banquet sponsor. He'd have a table. He'd bring his son. The son would bring Brianna. Brianna would bring our parents, all of them assembled, to show the Caldwells what kind of family they were marrying into. The polished version, the complete version, the one without me in it. They had no idea I was 40 feet away. Dinner came at 7. Some kind of stuffed chicken, roasted vegetables. I couldn't have told you if it was good. I kept my eyes on that table. My mother had her hand on Mrs. Caldwell's arm, doing her charming thing. My father was laughing at something Gordon said. Brianna glowed. The fiancé had his arm draped across the back of her chair. This was the family my sister wanted these people to see. At 7:30 a woman took the stage, the association president, gray suit, easy way with a microphone. She welcomed everyone, thanked the sponsors. Gordon's company got named and I watched him give a modest little nod while my parents beamed at the reflected importance of sitting at his table. Let's get into it, the president said. One of my favorite categories, Tradesperson of the Year. My hands went to ice under the table. At the Caldwell table, the fiancé's father straightened up. This was his world. This award meant something to him. This honor goes to a tradesperson who's shown not just excellence in their craft, but real leadership and real growth, she said. Our 3 finalists represent the very best of what this trade can be. A slide came up. 3 names. A man I knew named Doug Reinhardt, then mine Sabrina Holt, Holt Electric. Then a woman named Priya from a shop down in Burnsville. My name, on a screen, 40 feet from my family. I watched it happen like it was underwater. Gordon Caldwell read the screen and frowned, then leaned toward my sister and said something. I saw Brianna glance up at the screen, saw her go still, saw her say something back, fast. A little laugh maybe. Brushing it off until Gordon pointed and said something else, and her face changed. She grabbed the program off the table and flipped it open and read. And I knew exactly what it said, because I'd read it a dozen times. Sabrina Holt, founder and owner of Holt Electric, has grown her company from a single van operation to a 19-person firm in 5 years, with projected revenue of $2 million and a portfolio that includes commercial, hospitality, and high-end residential work across the metro. Brianna's hand went to her mouth. She turned to her fiancé. I watched his face go from confusion to something a lot worse. He turned to his father. Gordon was already looking at me. He'd found me at the finalists' table. And his expression wasn't shock. It was recognition. He knew me. He knew exactly who I was. He'd watched me run his job. My mother caught the commotion. I read her lips across the room. What's wrong? And then she followed her son-in-law-to-be's stare to the screen, found my name, and her hand flew up to her necklace. My father squinted, leaned in, and went absolutely still. The president was still talking. Our winner this year didn't just meet the criteria, she set a new bar for what's possible in 5 years. She opened the envelope. Your tradesperson of the year is Sabrina Holt, Holt Electric. The room came up in applause. A light found me. My legs didn't feel like mine, but I stood. The guys at my table were on their feet, the mason clapping me on the shoulder, the plumber whistling. I saw Marco in the back. I'd brought him as my guest standing, not clapping, just looking at me with his arms crossed and his jaw working like he was trying not to come apart. I walked to the stage, 20-some steps, past my family's table, close enough to see everything. I let myself look, just once. My mother's fork was suspended over her plate, forgotten. My father's face had gone slack, doing math. Brianna looked like she'd been slapped. Her fiancé was staring at the tablecloth, and Gordon Caldwell was watching his son with an expression I'd remember for a long time. The look of a man who has just realized he was lied to in his own home. I climbed the steps. The president handed me the award, a heavy glass thing shaped like a flame on a wood base, and shook my hand. The microphone waited. A few hundred people waited. I took a breath. Thank you, I said, and my voice held. 6 years ago, I signed a lease on a garage I couldn't really afford, bought a van with no name on it yet, and told anybody who'd listen I was going to build something solid. Most people smiled and changed the subject. I let that sit a second. This started with me and a roll of wire and a meter. Today it's 19 people who climb into cold attics before sunrise and stay until a job is safe and right, because they believe the work behind your walls is worth doing well even when nobody ever sees it. Another beat. To everyone who valued what I was building before it was finished, thank you. I didn't look at my family, but I felt them hear it. I stepped back. The applause came louder. I walked off, sat down, and somebody pressed a glass of something cold into my hand. My phone buzzed face down on the table. I flipped it over. A text from my mother. We need to talk. I set it down. The program wrapped around 8:30, and people started milling with drinks. I was talking to a contractor I'd been wanting to meet when I saw my mother coming across the room. Fast. My father trailing her, looking like a man who wasn't sure he was allowed in the building. Sabrina, she said. We had no idea. The contractor excused himself. My mother stalked in front of me, clutching her little purse with both hands like it was holding her up. We had no idea, she said again. I know, I said. That's the whole point. My father stepped up. Why didn't you tell us, honey? I looked at him, 61 years old. The man who'd asked Brianna about her stakeholders every Sunday for 12 years and asked me how the wiring was going, like it was a phase. I did tell you, I said. 6 years ago, I said I was starting a company. You asked me if I had any customers, and then you asked Brianna about Scottsdale. My mother's face went red. But this is... This is a real business, Sabrina. What did you think it was? I asked. Did you think I was changing light bulbs out of the back of my car? Nobody said anything. The good kind of silence, the kind with weight. Excuse me, I said. I need to find my guy. He came a long way for this. I'd taken maybe 4 steps when I heard my sister. Sabrina, wait. She caught me by the bar, reached for my arm. I stopped and turned, and she pulled her hand back before she touched me. I didn't know it was like this, she said. You never asked. You never told me. I told all of you, for years. Every time I tried to talk about a job or a hire, Mom asked you about your quarter, and everybody moved on. I shrugged. You stopped hearing me a long time ago. That's not the same as me not saying it. Her eyes were wet. His parents, Connor's parents? They're not even looking at us. That's not my problem, Bray. You and Dad decided I'd embarrass you in front of them. Me. The one who's been rewiring their lake house since April. Her whole face came apart at that. What? Ask your future father-in-law, I said. Ask him whose crew he's had in his house all summer. I let it land. We're done for tonight. I walked away. She said my name once. I didn't turn around. Connor's father found me himself a few minutes later, near the windows that looked out at the dark water. He had 2 glasses and handed me one I didn't ask for. I owe you an apology, Gordon said, and I think a great deal of mine isn't mine to give. You didn't do anything, I said. You hired me. You paid on time. That's more than most. I sat at a table tonight, he said slowly, while your sister's family went out of their way to keep you out of a party. And the whole time, the person they were embarrassed by was the same person I've been bragging about to my neighbors all summer. He shook his head. My son told me your family didn't have anyone, quote, in our world. I'd say you're the only one in that family who's actually in it. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said thank you. Those 3 jobs I mentioned at the lake, he said. The rentals, the building downtown. They're yours when you're ready, strictly business. You've earned it 3 times over. He nodded once and left me alone with the water. My mother caught me again on my way out, in the lobby. Both my parents looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Will you let us take you to dinner? She asked. To celebrate, please. I looked at her a long moment. She was 59. She'd answered phones at an insurance office for 26 years, and watched kids half her age with degrees get promoted past her. She'd pushed Brianna and me toward anything that looked safe and clean from the outside, because she thought looking respectable was the same as being protected. She'd wanted us to have it easier than she did. And in wanting that so hard, she'd missed every single thing I'd actually built. Not tonight, I said. But thank you for asking. Her face crumpled. My father took her hand. And for the first time in 12 years, standing in that lobby, they finally saw me. It just wasn't enough to fix it in one night. I have to go, I said. I walked out, into the cold. I could see my breath. I set the glass flame on the passenger seat of my truck, where my hard hat usually rode, and started the engine and sat there a minute looking at it. The email from my father came 4 days later, Wednesday, 5051 in the morning. Sabrina, I've been trying to write this since Saturday. I don't know how, so I'll just say it. We failed you. I sat in that room and watched my own daughter's name up on a screen in front of all those people and realized I couldn't have told a stranger one true thing about what you do. I asked your sister about her job every week for years because I understood her job. I never tried to understand yours, and that's on me, not you. I'm ashamed of that. And I'm proud of you more than I know how to write down. I should have said it 6 years ago. I'm sorry, Dad. He signed it, Dad. He'd been signing texts with just his first initial for as long as I could remember. This one said. I read it 3 times. My mother texted around noon, "Can we talk?" I wrote back, "Coffee." Friday. The little place on Central, 9 a.m. She answered in under a minute. I'll be there. Brianna left a voicemail that afternoon. Her voice shook the whole way through. Sabrina, it's me. I know you don't want to hear from me. I've been jealous of you since we were kids. You always had the guts to just do the thing. And I followed every safe road there was and told myself it made me better. It didn't. Connor and he needs some time. After the way it looked, the way I made it look, I don't blame him. I'm sorry. I don't know if you'll forgive me, but I had to say it. 4 minutes of that. I listened twice and put the phone down and went back to work. Friday morning I got to the coffee shop at 10 of 9. My mother walked in at 8:57 in a gray sweater and no makeup, looking like she hadn't slept since Saturday. She ordered the same black coffee I had and wrapped both hands around the cup. Thank you for coming, she said. Start with why, I said. She took a breath. I wanted you to have it easier than I had it. I've sat behind a desk for 26 years and watched everybody pass me. I thought if you wore nice clothes and worked somewhere with a lobby, nobody could ever look down on you. When you said you wanted to climb around in attics, all I could hear was people looking down on my daughter the way they've looked down on me my whole life. Nobody looks down on me, Mom, I said, except the people who were supposed to be on my side. She flinched and nodded, and the tears came. I know. I see that now. I needed you to be proud of me, I said. Of the actual work. Not proud of me in spite of it. Proud because of it. I am, she whispered. Does it count this late? I don't know yet, I said. Honestly. That's fair. We sat a while. Then I said, and here's the thing I keep needing you to understand. Even if I'd failed, even if I'd never made a dime and I was still driving that first beat-up van around fixing outlets for $40, I'd still have been worth a seat at that party. That's the part that actually hurt. Not that you didn't know I was successful. That you only think I'm worth claiming now that I am. She put her face in her hands. You're right, she said, muffled. God, you're right. I'll come to Thanksgiving, I said. On a condition. If anybody calls it the wiring, like it's a hobby, if anybody acts like I'm the one who got lucky, I leave and I don't come back to that table. Okay, she said. Okay. And I'm bringing Marco. He's got no family up here. And he's been with me since it was just the two of us in that garage. Something flickered across her face and then she nodded. We'd be glad to have him. We finished our coffee. When we stood, she hugged me, longer than she had in years, and I let her. Thanksgiving came. I drove out to Maple Grove at noon with Marco in the passenger seat, holding a foil pan of his wife's tamales on his knees because he refused to walk in empty-handed. You sure about this? He asked at the end of the driveway. No, I said, but we're going in. My mother answered the door and hugged me too long, then turned to Marco and put out her hand. You must be Marco. I'm Linda. Come in out of the cold. The house smelled like turkey and sage. My father was setting the table. Brianna was on the couch. No, Connor. I didn't ask, and she looked up when I came in and didn't smile. Just nodded. I nodded back. It wasn't peace. It was a ceasefire. It was a start. We ate at 1. Halfway through, my father set down his fork and said, Sabrina, Whitney mentioned you've got that hotel job downtown starting up. Tell me about it. I stared at him. He'd called my office. He'd asked Whitney. It's a renovation, I said carefully. Boutique hotel, 40 rooms. We're doing the whole electrical package, all new low voltage, the works. We start in January. That's a big one, he said. How many of your people on it? Most of them, rotating, I said. It's the biggest thing we've taken on. And then my mother asked where I sourced my fixtures and whether I had enough licensed guys for a job that size, and they were real questions, and I answered them without weighing every word first. It felt strange. It felt like trying on a coat that almost fit. We left at 2:30. My mother walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for asking real questions," I said. She hugged me and I hugged her back. In the truck, Marco was quiet for a mile. Then he said, "That wasn't bad." "No," I said. "Not perfect, but not bad." It's March now. I was at the shop before 6 this morning, going over the prep list for the hotel job, when my phone buzzed. My mother. A Thursday. Not a Sunday. "Morning, sweetheart. Your dad and I were wondering if we could come by the shop sometime and see the operation. He keeps talking about your panels, only if it's okay." I looked at the message, then at the shop around me. The racks of conduit, the wrapped vans backing out into the gray morning. My name on the door and on the trucks and on the trophy that sits on the shelf over my desk, catching the light off the bay door like a little glass flame. I used to think I was building an electrical company. Turns out, I was building proof. Proof that I was worth listening to, worth asking about, worth a chair at the table. I don't need the proof anymore. They see me now, finally. Even if they don't entirely understand what they're looking at. And the funny thing is, that stopped being the point a while ago. I'd have kept building this either way. I love the work. That's the part they're only now starting to understand. I typed back, "Yeah, I'd like that." Then I set the phone down, picked up my meter, and got back to it. The shop waking up loud and bright around me. For years I thought the worst part was the silence at that table. The way, "How's the wiring going, hon?" landed every Sunday like a pat on the head. But sitting in my truck after the gala, the glass flame on the seat where my hard hat usually rides, I finally understood it wasn't silence that hurt. It was the math my family kept doing without knowing they were doing it. They'd decided a long time ago that the value of a person lives in how easy they are to explain to strangers. And I'd spent 12 years trying to win an argument nobody would say out loud. Here's what I know now. Nothing in that room happened by accident. My parents didn't see me because they never once chose to look. And a thing you refuse to look at for a decade doesn't disappear. It just grows in the dark until one night. It's standing on a stage with your daughter's name on it. Brianna lost Connor's family's trust, not because of who I was, but because of the lie she told to keep me hidden. Gordon respected me because I showed up, did the work right, and didn't perform for him. Cause and effect, every step. People reaped exactly what they planted, and so did I. If I could hand my 19-year-old self anything, it wouldn't be the trophy. It'd be 3 things I had to learn the slow way. The first is to do the right thing even when nobody's clapping, especially then. To keep your word, pay your people fairly. And never make yourself small just because someone's uncomfortable with your size. Marco came a long way for me that night, because for 6 years I treated him like he mattered when no one was watching. That comes back to you. The second is to keep your head clear when your heart wants revenge. I could have blown up that table. I didn't. I let the truth speak in its own time, in front of the right people. And walked out with my dignity instead of a scene. Knowing when to stay quiet is its own kind of strength, and it's smarter than any comeback I could have shouted. The third is the plain stubbornness to keep building when the people you love won't even glance your way. 12 years of cold attics and early mornings, of nobody asking, and I kept going anyway. Not to prove them wrong. Though for a long time I told myself that's what it was. I kept going because the work was honest, and it was mine. So, if you're the one your family parks in the garage when company comes, hear me. You don't have to wait for them to see you to be worth seeing. Build the real thing. Be the kind of person you'd be proud to know. Stay steady when it'd be easier to break. The recognition might come late, like mine did, in a lobby with my mother's face coming apart. And by the time it does, if you've done it right, you'll find you don't need it the way you used to. You'll just love the work. That's the part they never understand until they finally do.